Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. So, have you ever felt like your family is being controlled by this invisible force field? Like there's a gravitational pull that just keeps everyone locked into the exact same roles, no matter how hard you try to break free? Well, today we are going on a journey to uncover the hidden operating system that literally runs our families.
Really think about it. Why do family arguments always feel like reruns? You know the exact feeling. You go home for the holidays, and within, 5 minutes, you're having the exact same argument with your parents or your siblings that you've been having for 15 years. It is universally frustrating. But what if I told you this isn't just stubbornness? It's actually a deeply embedded systemic design.
Okay, let's dive into this. The main culprit here is a little something called homeostasis. Now, in a family system, homeostasis is the natural tendency to maintain a constant, familiar state and just fiercely resist enduring change. It prioritizes survival and predictability way over progress. So even if the family's quote-unquote normal state is completely dysfunctional or downright painful, the system is going to fight tooth and nail to stay right there, simply because it's what is known. It's not a character flaw of your family members, it's a powerful, invisible gravitational pull. To really grasp how this gravity works, we have to look at cybernetics. Anthropologist Gregory Bateson actually adopted this concept from mathematician Norbert Wiener. And look, cybernetics isn't just for computers and machines, it's the epistemology of systems. Basically, it explains how systems use communication to self-regulate and remain stable. So, in your family, this is the literal architecture of how family members constantly influence each other in a circular way, always reading each other's behavior just to keep the whole system in check. Section 1. Unspoken rules. The status quo protectors.
So, how exactly do families fight off change and maintain this homeostasis? Well, they use unspoken rules, and these act like an invisible force field protecting the way things are. Every single family establishes an architecture for its status quo. They create constant roles and routines. They strictly govern communication, literally dictating who says what to whom and under what conditions. Think about rules like don't make dad angry, keep a smile on your face, or we absolutely don't talk about that. Now, these unspoken rules are essential early on, right? They provide a sense of constancy, familiarity, and psychological survival. But man, they can become incredibly rigid. When a problem pops up and the usual response is just making things worse, family members often can't even perceive trying a different approach because doing so would completely violate these established rules. They resist the unknown at all costs.
Section 2. Feedback loops, the system's correction mechanism. Now, what's really interesting about this is that if unspoken rules are the force field, feedback loops are the family's internal steering wheel. And a quick heads up on the terminology here, positive and negative do not mean good or bad, or right or wrong. They just describe the function of change. A positive feedback loop initiates change and forces the system to adapt. A negative feedback loop deters change to restore equilibrium and bring back the status quo. So when a family functions strictly within its routines, allowing little to absolutely no deviation from the norm, it is actively deploying negative feedback to squash any perceived threats to the system's balance. Anytime someone tries to step out of line, the family just pushes back to keep everything exactly the same. Okay, you have got to hear this mind-blowing reframe from our sources. Two parents who are on the verge of divorce may pull together enough to focus on and try to address their child's problems. In this case, the system maintains itself through a negative feedback loop. Really think about that. A child's sudden bad behavior acts as a negative feedback loop. By acting out, the child inadvertently forces the parents to stop fighting with each other and unite, literally stabilizing their marriage and saving the family unit from changing. The crisis itself deters the ultimate change, divorce. Section 3. Symptoms as system stabilizers. We usually look at severe clinical symptoms in a family member as just an individual issue, right? But systemically, it is so much deeper than that. Individual symptoms are not isolated problems. They actively serve a functional purpose to maintain the family's overall homeostasis and sense of normalcy. The system will sometimes actually express an illness or a behavioral issue in its most physically or emotionally vulnerable member. And why? Literally to distract the whole family from a larger, much more terrifying structural collapse. And this brilliantly illustrates our next point. It's a heavy but incredibly illuminating example from the clinical assessments, the Quest family case study. In this specific family, the youngest daughter, Rachel, develops diabetes. But this medical issue isn't just existing in a vacuum.
it is actually masking a massive underlying trauma of partially treated sexual abuse of an older sister, right alongside the mother's intense denial behavior.
The clinical analysis puts it like this. Rachel's illness appears to serve the purpose of restoring the family's sense of cohesion by mobilizing family members in an effort to control and cure Rachel's symptoms. The clinical weight of this is just staggering. The family is so utterly overwhelmed by the unhealed abuse and grief that it unconsciously uses the panicked response to Rachel's diabetes to successfully avoid the sheer chaos of addressing the deeper structural trauma. Caring for the physical illness basically becomes the functional glue holding them all together.
Section 4. The illusion of change. So, if the system fights this hard to avoid real transformation, how do families ever feel like they're fixing anything? Well, anthropologist Gregory Bateson made a really critical observation about how families kind of trick themselves. He contrasted two concepts directly: first-order change versus second-order change. First-order changes are superficial adjustments. They're actually designed specifically to maintain constancy and balance. Second-order changes, on the other hand, are the enduring, fundamental transformations that alter the family process altogether. And families absolutely love first-order change. By making these minor, surface-level adjustments, the family creates the appearance of change, offering false hope while fundamentally remaining completely stuck. They avoid the deeper transformation because that would totally threaten their beloved homeostasis. Which brings us to Section 5, embracing chaos for growth. To actually achieve that true second-order change, we've got to totally rebrand chaos from a terrifying threat into a mandatory catalyst. According to family therapy pioneer Virginia Setter, when a foreign element, like a new stressor, a crisis, or even a therapist, breaks through the family's rigid rules and disrupts the status quo, the family is sent into a temporary, completely disorienting state of chaos. This is experienced as a profound loss of balance, safety, and control. It feels terrifying, and that is exactly why people desperately cling to their familiar, dysfunctional patterns. The uncertainty of structural change just feels so much worse than the pain they already know.
Let's move to and see how this builds in Virginia Satir's visual roadmap for the process of change. It lays this out perfectly. We start at the status quo. Then, the foreign element hits. This forces the entire system into step 3, chaos. But look at what follows right after. Step 4 is new integration. The absolutely crucial point here is that you cannot reach a healthy new integration without walking directly through the fire of chaos.
So here is your main takeaway, and honestly, it's incredibly empowering. Chaos is not a failure of the system. Feeling disoriented, feeling like everything is just spinning completely out of control when you try to change your family dynamics, that is actually the mandatory doorway to enduring second-order change. Systemic disruption is exactly what progress feels like. All right, we've unpacked the whole shebang, the hidden operating system that keeps us stuck, from homeostasis and negative feedback loops, right through to the illusion of first-order change. Now I want to leave you with this final provocative thought so you can examine your own systemic gravity. What unspoken rule is secretly running your family? And, more importantly, are you ready to embrace a little chaos to break it? Thanks so much for watching this explainer, and I'll catch you next time.